Let's get more now on that breaking news in the last hour that Lucy Allen, the MP for Telford, has been suspended from the Conservative Party after she tweeted that she was supporting the Reform Party candidate in her seat in Telford. Well, joining me now to discuss this in more detail is ReformUK leader Richard Tice. Mr. Tice, hello and welcome to Sky News. First of all, your reaction to this, which I'm assuming will be a happy one.
Obviously, I'm delighted that Lucy Allen recognises that Reform is the party of common sense policies and the policies that can get our country growing again, that can raise wages, that can freeze immigration, that can get to zero waiting lists. So her endorsement of our great candidate in the constituency of Telford after she steps down is sort of a vindication and verification of that. So we're absolutely thrilled to bits. Who knows? I mean, there's still a few days to go. We might even tempt her to stand nearby. Who knows?
OK, well, we'll keep an eye on that. Obviously, there's been reaction from the Conservative Party, like I was saying. They also say a vote for Reform is a vote for Keir Starmer. They're speaking specifically about Telford. But in general, that is true, isn't it? A vote for Reform is a vote for Keir Starmer.
Not at all. No, absolute nonsense. In fact, if you vote Tory, you get Labour. We've seen that with two Tory MPs recently defecting to Labour. They're both two sides of socialism. High taxes, big state, low growth and mass immigration that puts huge pressure, unfair pressure on housing rents, making it ever more unaffordable, huge pressure on our healthcare services, leading to longer ambulance delays, A&E waits and operational waiting lists. And, it's just not fair. And of course, mass immigration depresses the wages of British people, in particular the low-paid young people. So, the reality is people have got a choice. If you're not happy with what's going on in this country, then you've got to vote for change, because if you vote for either of the two main parties, you're voting for the status quo. There's no difference between their policies.
Let me also ask you about the National Service Plan that, of course, has been in the news since Rishi Sunak announced the plan yesterday if he wins the election. You've been against it, which perhaps is surprising. Why would you be against the idea of a national service for young people to show their pride in the country?
Look, the idea of national military service, it sounds good on paper.
But it's not, forgive me, it's not national military service. That's something else. He's talking about national service. Hang on.
Well, what they've done is they've presented it as national military service to try and steal Reform UK voters because they're terrified of how many voters we're taking from them. Actually, if you leave the military service to one side, a national contribution, a sort of civic duty from young people, carefully thought out, which of course they haven't done because they've dreamt it up on the back of a fag packet over the weekend, but carefully thought out, there's merit and mileage in it. You've got to look at all the details. All they're doing is coming up with a sort of as I say, a back of the fag packet snapshot headline that everybody knows won't be delivered, like most of their promises, in order to try and steal our voters. And frankly, people are not going to wear it. They're tired of promises that never get delivered by the toxic Tories.
Mr. Tice, I don't know whether you were watching Sky News yesterday, but the honorary president of your party, of course, Nigel Farage, was on our Breakfast Politics programme with Trevor Phillips, and he said that a growing number of young people in this country do not subscribe to British values. And when Trevor pushed him, he said Muslims. So a growing number of Muslim young people do not subscribe to British values. Obviously, a comment seen as incredibly offensive by many. Do you agree with the words of Nigel Farage?
Well, it's interesting, isn't it, that the same Trevor Phillips back in 2016 literally said Muslims are not like us and we should just accept they will never integrate.
Forgive me, sir, but Trevor Phillips is not... Let's leave my colleague to one side. He's not the honorary president of your party.
You can't have it both ways. You can't accuse someone from the right of being racist when the very person making that allegation has said almost exactly the same thing as Nigel said. And we have to have the conversation. Look, the vast majority of peace-loving, hard-working, community-contributing Muslims, I've got lots of Muslim friends, are a wonderful part of our fabric and our society. But we have to accept, and a recent Henry Jackson survey confirmed it, that there is an element, for example, 47% of 18 to 24-year-old British Muslims don't think that Hamas raped and murdered Jewish people on October the 7th.
Those are not
the values of the British people. and we have to have that discussion.
That poll has been criticised because it asked a binary question, and it was put between Israel and Hamas as opposed to Israel and the Palestinian territories. But let's just end the interview.
We're not going into October the 7th denial in the same way that people try and deny the Holocaust. We're not having that.
Of course we're not going into that.
It was horrific.
I am just saying
it was a terrorist group,
poll,
and we're not equalising that in any shape or form.
We're not doing that. I'm just saying that poll has been criticised for asking a binary question, support of Israel and Hamas versus Israel and the Palestinian territory. But then let me bring you back to the original question then. What do you think then of Nigel Farage's comments? Just when you heard them, what was your reaction?
My reaction was that it's quite right to raise these discussions so that people understand, as I say, that people of all faiths are fantastic as long as they share our values of peace, tolerance, respect, compassion and understanding. But there has to be a recognition that, some people, for example, 32% of British Muslims in that same survey want the introduction of Sharia law in this country. Well, that's not part of who we are or our values. We've got to be prepared to talk about it. And for the left to try and smear and suppress debate is not good for democracy, and that is the wrong way to go. Have an open, sensible, transparent, respectful debate. Everybody's better off for it.
Richard Tice, leader of ReformUK. I'm sure we will touch on all these subjects again before July the 4th, but for the moment, sir, thank you.
Thank you.